Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty.
All right. Welcome back to the iHealth channel, the Fit and Fab channel, iHealth Radio with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new topic, interesting topic, always an interesting topic with a great guest today. And so it coincides today with the Women's International Day. So from this platform, we want to dedicate this particular episode to all the women around the world and wish them happiness, health, and prosperity, wellness, you name it. And with me, I have someone who dedicates herself also to women and their health and just well-being. So with me, I have Lisa Dahl, and she is a nutritionist, I guess. You know, that I would put her in that category. She does a lot more than that. She's a coach. She does a lot of stuff, and again, she'll tell us more about her background and what she does. The focus today is really to teach folks and at least share with them opportunities to be healthier through intuitive eating, and we'll talk about what that means as opposed to diet, and we'll see how that all plays. And that's a very difficult thing sometimes, just hearing it, eating without diet, and what does that sound like? What does that mean? Fitness always is a big part of this, so we're going to talk about this and tie it all together. So, Lisa, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, and I'm super excited to be here on International Women's Day and really giving women a voice that they are so much more than the body or the vessel that they are in. So it's a great topic for such an important day.
It is, and you know what? Listen, I'm surrounded with women. My mom, my wife, my daughter. I mean, my family, my friends. So my coworkers, and we love women all over the world. And yes, you're right. It is important, and there is more to the health. And women specifically, they have different, I guess, ways of dealing with health and fitness and so on and so forth. So it is important to share with them like some of the tips and the opportunities that they have. Because again, one thing that we come across, especially on the channel, I've had a lot of shows and we talk about fitness and different programs, different diets, and plant-based and so on and so forth. But there's always that big question, as we quickly referred to earlier, about the I guess how to really lose weight, stay healthy, and all that stuff. But most of the people do that with a form of a fitness, format and or program, and or a diet version. And your formula kind of takes a little bit that whole edge. So let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about your background. I think that's more interesting to start, and then we can go through the whole deep dive here.
Awesome. So I'm Lisa Dahl. I'm an intuitive eating and body image health coach. And I work with women to help them undiet their lives. So really helping them to get out of their heads and into their bodies. As dieters, we are very stuck on rules and directions, and you can do this, you can't do that. Intuitive eating is all about getting out of your head and being in your body. And I like to say that I help women learn how to listen, trust, and respect their bodies to be happy, healthy, and confident at any size. I am 100% weight inclusive. I do not weigh food or bodies, so we find other means of success. And one of the most often questions that I get is, if I practice intuitive eating, am I going to lose weight? And the honest answer is, I simply don't know. I don't know if you will gain weight, lose weight, or stay the same. I don't know what your genetics are, what your restriction patterns are. Are you coming to me in the middle of a binge cycle or in the middle of a restrictive cycle? So we take weight loss off of the table, because as long as weight loss is on the table, it inhibits the connection to being able to really learn how to listen to your body.
Well, that's a pretty interesting, intro right there because watching people are watching right now, listening, and they'll be like, "Oh, wait, weight loss, you're not giving us any guarantee one way or the other." By the way, I don't think anyone can ever give guarantees to anyone when it comes to health.
I mean, when it comes to weight, the science says that 95% of us will regain the lost weight plus additional weight. And, how I came into this is I was really uncomfortable with my body from the time that I was in elementary school. And it started with being told that I had to go to special gym because I couldn't walk on the balance beam, which set me up for being picked last for every team sport and not wanting to participate in anything physical. Then in high school, being weighed and measured and being in a larger body than the sea of girls around me. And I started dieting at the age of 12. I always say I grew up with the world of, Weight Watchers, Miss America pageant, and Snackwells. We lived on low fat everything, counting calories. And for the last 40 years, I spent dieting. When I shifted from catering to health and wellness a little over just about 6 years ago, my intention was I'm going to be the weight loss coach. I could restrict and deprive better than most people that I knew. What I discovered was that as I started working with my clients, not only was I feeling the stress and anxiety of weighing myself every day, which was part of my 40-year past, I was feeling the stress and anxiety of my clients, where they would be making great strides with their actions and their behaviors, only to feel defeated if the scale didn't reflect that number that they had worked so hard to achieve. And I started to pull back on that when I was working with my clients. And just because of my desire to always learn and read and do and be the best coach that I could be, I came across a book called Health at Every Size, written by Linda Bacon. And it put everything that I knew upside down, because in the world that I had lived in was that thin equals health, and you can only be healthy if you were a certain size. And all the other stuff was always about being in a smaller body. What I discovered through Health at Every Size, I also discovered the practice of intuitive eating and body positive. And I found through my own work was that I had disordered eating patterns. And when I started to recognize those patterns, I knew ethically and morally that I could no longer support women to lose weight. That the thing that I felt so important about, like my body size, really wasn't healthy. Just because it was normalized by society didn't mean that it was a good thing for me to do as well as to support. So I changed my entire practice, became 100% weight inclusive. And now I focus on 5 pillars of health, which is the practice of intuitive eating, mindful eating, health at every size, non-judgmental self-awareness, and self-compassion.
Well, all right, so we're gonna get to all that, but I want to step back a little bit on the concept and the story behind your journey, right? And by the way, that is probably the journey of many, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, from an early age. By the way, I think even men have similar experiences, and
Yes.
and the pressures are out there. But I think to your point, for women from the beginning, especially depends on the age time, when you grew up, and there was, to your point, the pageant, this and the other.
Right. I mean, I'm 56. It's been a long time.
It's still out there. It's still out there. Actually, I think it's worse now, and we'll talk about that today because the world of social media makes it a little bit more difficult. but you're right. Like, the concept where, and I've had actually a different show similar to the concept where people actually are looking at you because of your, your body and size and stuff, and then you feel like literally you don't belong, or you have to make tremendous changes to fit in, and that's sometimes psychologically not the right way to do it, because then you go extreme. and that's right, because you want to meet that demand, and unfortunately you don't have to. And every to each his own, as we say, right? Some people are, they should be comfortable the way they look, and if it's not happening, there's ways to deal with it. But the pressures that are out there are the problem.
It's the diet culture. It is the shackles of dieting and diet culture that has us thinking and believing that we have to be X to be accepted. And it has to do with, ethnicity and the color of our skin and the size of our body, that it's all comes down to social justice issues. And how do we, my goal when I work with women is for them to feel, for them to focus on how they feel in their body, not how people are looking at their bodies. So that, women are typically objectified. Getting out of that, trying to change that narrative, my body, my business, it's really not for you to comment on. And how do we get out of that mindset and really work on how do you feel in your body based on your actions and behaviors? Health means something different to everybody. It's not for me to tell you that this is health. How I view health and how you view health are going to be two very different things. And how do we help people or support people who have different challenges? It's about them being as healthy as their body can be, and as well as much as they want to be. It's not somebody's duty that they have to be this. What's comfortable for them? What's important to them? And what kind of privilege or lack of privilege do they have? We think that, it's not about the food. Where are you coming from? What is your availability to food? What is your food story? What are your parents telling you or your caregivers telling you about what is acceptable? Because as children, we learn and, from modeling our parents. So if you have a parent, I'm going to just use the example of a mom. If you had a mom who spent her whole, your whole childhood saying, I don't like my body, I'm not going to be in a picture, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And you have this child looking at this mother who they love. She hates her body and they look like her. And all of a sudden they start to hate their body, because how could they like their body if they look exactly like the person who they love and adore who hates their body? How do we break that cycle?
Well, you're touching on some serious points here. I mean, a lot of this is also like psychological, and we're talking about the weight and the health part, and I want to touch on that also in a minute. But the idea is, to your point, if you love who you look like, what you look like, and how you feel, that's a key thing. I mean, it starts with you, and we use that in everyone, like even your life. I mean, you are your health, your life, your style, your way of living, your lifestyle. You shouldn't worry about what people think, right? And that's a big deal. We should. Yeah, by the way, some people don't really care, right? And actually, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm maybe one of those borderline. I do worry about like what people think to a degree. I mean, we all do. There's a conscious level where you want to know where. But to be honest with you, no one can change me. No one can do things for me. No one is invested in my body or my health or my sanity, right? So it starts with you, right? Anything you do, it's us, right? Personally, we have to make those decisions, the conscious decisions, and make things. But you're right. Sometimes we are influenced by what we have around us. Our parents are first. Remember when I talked about women in my life? I started with my mom. That's where it started. And then my wife, and that's the biggest chunk of all of it. Then you have your kids too. My daughter has an influence in a lot of things. But really, for women listening, watching right now, this starts early on. To your point, there is you're looking at your I guess role models, your mom, or your aunts, or your their friends and
your caregivers, your caregivers,
exactly. Everybody, and then you have also people from school, for example. You said it yourself. You're in school. There is a lot of influence right there. Those can make a difference. And then
social media.
Well, we'll talk about that because that's the new generation.
That's a whole other animal.
What before social media, we had movies, similar. We have marketing campaigns. You look at models. That's like, you want to look good. You got to look like Barbie or Ken, right? Those are like the main, visuals that we've always had. So there's a certain look and profile everybody should look. You want to be in a beauty pageant. This is how you look. You want to be in a magazine. This is how you're supposed to look. That changed over the years. I mean, we've gone a long way. I mean, that's the good news.
It's small. It's inching. It's we're starting to see the change. And it has so much more to go.
Well, you are doing a difference. You are making a difference because, and that's when I want to talk about what you mentioned about your health and my health. Everybody's health different, right? And we all agree that we want to be healthy. And to your point, what does that mean? I mean, healthy means I can do things. I'm happy. I'm active. I'm physically fit internally, and not necessarily the size or shape, but I'm talking about how's my cardio? How's my heart? How's my inside? So there is that level of health. But then also there's the visual health, right? I mean, you don't want to be extremely, let's say overweight or obese or something. That there's there you could
That's
you could
and that's part of the challenge, is that
yes.
you can be in a larger body and be healthy, because it is not, in my opinion, it's not about what I see or the number on the scale. It is about your actions and your behaviors. It is about, what is your stress level? What do your relationships look like? What's your financial health? We're so ingrained to believe that nutrition and movement and exercise is, 80% of your health. What I go by is that it's only between 15 and 20% of your health, that there's the stress and the discrimination that causes the changes in your body is so much more harmful than body weight. And it's really changing the paradigm on what health looks like. And if somebody had told me 5 years ago that I would be having this conversation, that the number on the scale doesn't matter, I would have said, no way, no how, that's not, like, that's just not possible. How could I do anything differently than I am? Until I started to dig into the research and realize the harm and the messaging that I absorbed, that I no longer could be part of that dialogue. And by shifting where I'm looking, what I see, who I work with, how I work, has changed significantly. I cannot believe, it always astonishes me that I don't stand here and say, like, oh, I weighed myself today and blah, 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 blah. And I ate this, this, and this. I have years of food logs. You talk about boring reading, because I was only allowed to eat. Changing my relationship to food and my perspective on my body has changed my life significantly, personally and professionally. And that's the gift that I want to give to others.
And you are doing it. As a matter of fact, it's funny because the minute I talked about obesity and weight, you jumped in. That shows your passion, and I love that. And actually, what I was trying to get to is as in the health world, that's kind of like the concept, right? You possibly cannot be healthy if you look a certain way, and I think that's really the main stigma, the main visual that everybody has today. And there's reasons behind it. There's potentially some type of science available to that. There's some research that can support it. But there's marketing, there's industries, there's all these things that all kind of tie into like what that leadership. But I think what you're talking about is deeper than that. I am feeling healthy. I know I'm going to live a certain amount of time, and I'm happy with my body, and that should be it. I think that's really what the core here, because at the end of the day, if I am able to do certain things, I am. And by the way, I see a lot of people that are actually, and they're happy in their skin no matter what. They're happy. They're more active, more agile. They do everything, and they don't care because it's what makes them feel comfortable. And now the question is, how do we help them to your point now, to be healthier in terms of their own inner? That's a different story. And that's what your intuitive eating comes in. So let's talk about that.
So intuitive eating is based on 10 principles versus on rules and regulations. So the 10 principles are rejecting diet culture. So that is the first thing that we spend a lot of time on, because, people hear the word diet culture, but they don't really understand the impact. So diet culture is from all of the surrounding resources that really tell you that your body is not enough. It is from the medical community, it is from advertisings, from social media. It is the images of the before and after bodies, and nobody's showing you that before picture and that after picture really goes back to the before picture most of the time. Noticing the language, hearing it, seeing it, because people we have all been so ingrained that we just believe that it's true. When you start to dissect it, you start to say, well, who's giving me those messages? And then you can have the ability to say, well, is that true? And often it's not. Honoring, another principle is honoring your hunger. As dieters, we don't even know what our hunger feels. Many of us don't even know what our hunger feels like. You eat breakfast, you eat these things, and then you have lunch and you eat these things, and then you eat dinner and you eat it at a certain time of day. Nobody's talking about what your body is feeling, how do you know when you're hungry, other than perhaps, your tummy is grumbling, but do you notice if you're getting a headache or you can't concentrate? Because we have shut them down. Because if I learned to, if I noticed my hunger, then I have a battle of I'm not allowed to eat. So honoring your hunger, making peace with food. People don't realize that all the restriction and the deprivation creates that need to eat large quantities of food because your body doesn't trust you. And that goes back to hunger. Challenge the food police, all those voices in your head. Oh, I should eat that. I shouldn't eat this. This is good. This is bad. This is going to make me healthy. This is going to make me fat. This is going to make me like, blah, 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 blah. Like my biggest nemesis in terms of food police was when I would go to the supermarket or think about any food, I could see a label. I wouldn't even see the food. I would see a label. How many calories, how many proteins, how many carbs, how many fats, where did sugar fall in? And in seconds, it was labeled good food, bad food, can, can't, never, the whole thing. Now I see food as food, neither good nor bad. How does that food make me feel? Satisfaction. When you're on a diet, nobody talks about satisfaction, and they wonder why they stand in the pantry thinking, well, if I just have a little bit of this and I have a little bit of that, nothing satisfies them because they don't even know what satisfaction feels like. And satisfaction is not just about the food. One of the best examples I can give you is that in the middle of my divorce, my ex-husband wanted to go out for this beautiful dinner and took me to this amazing restaurant, 5-star restaurant, whole thing, beautiful ambiance. We're talking about freaking divorce. I couldn't even tell you what was on that plate. It was the most unsatisfying meal I've ever had. So satisfaction takes into so many different things. It's the food, your emotional state, your hunger, your fullness, your environment, your financial stress, all of those things. How do you bring those together to create satisfaction? Honoring your fullness. We are all multitasking, or feel your fullness. We're multitasking. Most of us don't even know when our bodies or our bellies shift to start to feel that fullness. Respecting your body. You don't have to be thin or to be a certain weight to respect your body. Learning to honor your body for what it can do. All of the things, whether you can, some people can't even look at themselves in the mirror. Let's focus on the fact that you have a beating heart. Because a respected body is a body that you will take care of far better than a body that you hate. Then it's movement versus exercise. Exercise has the connotation to shrink your body. Movement is about discovering what type of physical activity makes you feel good. Not for, I have to do X number of reps, not that I have to go do this. The best exercise, and I'm sure I would be surprised if you didn't agree, is that the one that you're going to continually go to and practice. And nutrition actually comes last, because often if you introduce nutrition, gentle nutrition, too soon, it breaks that connection where we have been working on how does your body feel, honoring your emotions with kindness, and getting out of that instant calorie math that so many dieters do so well, or managing their proteins and their carbs. And most of us have been taught that emotional eating is this horrible thing. And what happens if you change your perspective and you say, I'm noticing that these are the reasons why I'm eating. The food is really just the symbol. It's trying to take that back to be introspective and to say, am I bored? Am I lonely? Am I sad? Am I stressed? Am I anxious? Am I unhappy? How do we learn to sit and deal with those emotions versus masking, numbing, and soothing with food? So yes, food can soothe, and yes, it's needed because it has kept you strong and resilient for all of these years if you are a dieter. How do we start to build that self-care toolbox that also includes the cookie box? Because sometimes people eat. Food is emotional. Like, we all do it. It's part of our lives. It's when somebody dies, you bring food. When somebody breaks up in a relationship, you bring food. When somebody has a baby, you bring food. Food is emotional, celebratory, any which way you look at it. How do we begin to take in all of those things and make it okay, that it is not a special occasion that you're being bad and you're enjoying some decadent piece of chocolate. Let's get rid of that dialogue and enjoy the chocolate for what it is.
First of all, that's good. You left it with a checklist piece. I think everybody went through it. Like, the first thing that the mama just went out and just looked about a piece of chocolate in my mind.
And if you're a dieter, you would say, like, I can't think about that chocolate. I don't want to think about that chocolate. And all you do is think about that chocolate.
Well, yeah. Well, again, whatever you've talked about right now, it's all psychological 101. I mean, this is like really your brain working magic. And again, everything is, we control a lot of things, right? But if you, the way you break it down makes it very interestingly, positioned, step by step. And you're right. Like the fact that you mentioned satisfaction. I mean, you're right. People you can shove food in and there's nothing. You don't even enjoy it.
You don't even taste it. You don't taste it.
Yeah.
It's, you talk about hunger. And often we say, well, what does your belly want? Your belly just wants to be full. It's noticing the other types of hunger that will bring you satisfaction. And, is it eye hunger? Are you out in the woods enjoying beauty, or can you enjoy all the food on your plate with different colors and shapes? What's being drawn in there? Nose, you pass a bakery. How do you satisfy that? As opposed to trying to ignore it. And then, you pass a bakery and you're not allowed to eat bread. You're not allowed to eat bread. You're not allowed to eat bread. And you go in and there's like beautiful baked bread. And then all of a sudden you have to eat the entire loaf because it's the only way to satisfy yourself because you've been deprived for so long. Or, if you have, heart hunger, if you're sad or lonely, food is used to soothe. How, it's really more about healing your heart and using tools to be able to bring yourself up versus masking that loneliness or that emptiness. So trying to notice what types of hunger you're actually experiencing so that you can satisfy those different hungers. And nobody's going to be satisfied at every meal. That's just not possible. It's about identifying what creates satisfaction so that you can practice being as satisfied as you can. And every once in a while, you're going to hit a home run and it's going to be amazing.
Well, Lisa, you're talking about literally awareness right now. I mean, you have to be aware of everything and understanding what those things mean. And I think that's the problem with most of us. Because, again, we're not taught that. It's not something that you actually, grow up with. This is the formula how you're supposed to see food and do stuff. Where we grow up, we eat food since we're babies and we start getting, those things in. And then you start seeing, sweets and whatever. And then you get, at every stage, there's more stuff that you enjoy. And again, sometimes when you work, you have money and stuff, you can just indulge in a lot of things. We vacation, we satisfied in a way or the other, you enjoy with everything. And that's just the way it is. But being aware of exactly all these elements that you've covered right now is something new probably for a lot of us. We know about them, but we just don't apply them. Right. I don't think anyone with that list.
My clients always say, we check in and they, tell me about your week, what kind of wins? Oh, I feel like a broken record. I noticed. That's what it's about. And going back to, as babies, we are all born intuitive eaters. We are all born trusting and loving our bodies. And the first sign of not listening to our bodies, if you are being bottle fed or breastfed, where the baby cries and you nurse or you bottle feed and the baby will pull away and they're done. Then as the mom or caregiver, we know better. And we will try to, I used to call it topping it off because I would think, oh, I'm going to get another 15 minutes of sleep out of this. And what we're actually doing is that is the first signal that we're giving to our children, our babies, that we know better than they do. And they actually know better than we do. It's helping people go back to recreating how we started with intuitive eating. Then as we get a little bit older, and then the mom, the caregiver will say, well, no, you can't have that. It's not healthy. Okay, let me put that away. Good food, bad food. And our vocabulary starts to shift on what I'm allowed and what I'm not allowed. And then if it's a bad food, now I'm sneaking it. Now I'm like hiding it. And we start to create all of these diet patterns. When we shift our language with how we talk to our children, it starts to make a difference. So an example could be that dinner is at 6 o'clock and you have a child at 5:30. So a couple of different scenarios, and it's about setting boundaries. That if the child picks up an apple, all of a sudden, oh, you can have that, it's healthy. If the child picks up a bag of M&Ms, you're saying, oh no, you can't have that, that's not good for you. Instead, it would be better to set the boundary that you want them to come to the table with a healthy appetite. So not it's good or bad, it is not now. We're going to eat in 30 minutes. Thank you for being patient. And you know your child. Again, there's no black and white. If you have a kid that's melting down, maybe you need to change dinner time. So don't catch me that it's, you can't do this. It's learning to set boundaries, but without the black and white thinking that goes behind it. Because all of a sudden, oh, if it's an apple, you can have that. We want to take away that category. We want to remove that perfectionism of the good, the bad, the binary thinking.
Well, I love your concept, and I actually, yeah, I mean, listen, I've had a lot of different discussions about health, nutrition, and there's so many opinions about it, and it's pretty wide range of opinions, I would say. And I mean, I personally subscribe to a simpler formula, which it kind of ties a little bit to your concept. I mean, I almost use all of them, and I explain, meaning that I eat what I want, I eat almost when I want, but I just watch what I eat, the quantities and stuff like that. So I do indulge with whatever I think of. And, we have enough days in the week, and that, as long as we're alive, we can still touch things that we dream of, or we basically have some sort of a, you just crave them. You want to do that, you can do it. So if today, let's say in the day, right, good example, I was on the cruise, recently, and cruises are like, food everywhere, and you literally can just, die out of food in there. Just keep eating. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's all free. It's available. I mean, yeah, you can buy food also, but for the most part, you can eat all you can eat anytime, all day long, or all night long, literally. So, and it's all delicious. It's all beautiful. It looks good in front of you, and it's very attractive. So how do you, control that? I mean, what I do is I go in the morning, I grab a little bit. Tomorrow I grab something different. At lunch, I crave fries. I'll get fries. I don't get them every day or 3 times a day, but that's just my style. So I do enjoy it, but I have a way of playing. Now, again, everybody's different, and I think that's where your formula is. Like, you can do all of this, and you can be you and enjoy it, but you just have to figure out. Now, I also add a little bit of exercise and stuff, but that's because I've always been in the fitness or martial arts. That's part of it. But to your point, you don't have to do that. And
so I love your example of a cruise.
Big time.
I have not been on a cruise, but everything that I have heard is about the massive amounts of food. And when somebody gets on the cruise, the first few days they eat it. There's so much variety. They want to taste everything. It's endless. 7 days later, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm going to have a little bit of this. I'm going to have a little bit of that, because I don't like the way I feel with all of those foods, because it's kind of like they went in with restriction deprivation. They went into refeed. They got so used to it through something called habituation, and they started to dial back on the quantity of food because it was endless. They knew that it was coming. And that is the key when we're talking about making peace with food, is that knowing that it is always available. You don't have to eat every last morsel because you're never going to have it again. I mean, that's how dieters think, and I myself included, is that everything is about the Last Supper. Oh, I'm going to start my diet in the morning. I better quick, get in that last pint of ice cream or whatever your vice is. But that cruise is just a beautiful example of how you go in and your eyes are wide and you're thinking like, oh my God, it's a mecca of food, and you just eat. And then a few days in, you're like, well, there's going to be so much more later. I don't have to have it all right now. And that is how we start to make peace with food, is that I don't have to have it all right now, because I can give myself permission to eat it whenever I want. It's going to be there. It loses its magical, mystical lure. And that's what we're talking about.
And believe me, it works because that's exactly what I do. Like I know it's there, and most of it repeats itself. I mean, almost every day you can have almost the same thing. Every day there's some special stuff that they add, but the standard stuff is consistent week in, week out, right? And so when you want fries, you know where they are. You want I don't know, hot dog or burger, whatever they have them. I might just indulge once, throughout the cruise to do that. So like a little bit of everything in that same time frame, but without extravagantly going crazy one day and just get it. Like, because I've seen people literally, especially first time cruisers, they'll go in big trays and they have like literally 5 trays of things all over the place, and they don't even finish all of that. Half of it goes
And
to waste.
and I'm guessing, a large quantity of people will restrict and deprive themselves for weeks coming into that cruise. They want to look the best that they can look. They have been starving themselves. They bought all these clothes. They're doing all these things. And then it's the food mecca, and the dam breaks because willpower doesn't really work when we're talking about refeeding a starving body. So there's so many things that are going into play when you see that buffet of such large quantities of food that it is just, all in.
And Lisa, just true story. Like when you go on ships, I mean, I cruise very often, and one of the things that it is known in the industry that the average person does gain about 10 pounds from the minute from the day they came in versus the day they leave. They leave a little bit heavier in terms of their weight because they do enjoy. Now, there's another part of this and again, we're talking about the cruise, but in general, we talk about food mostly, but we don't think about drinks sometimes. And drinks can be just as bad, with the amount of stuff that you drink. Especially, we're not talking about water here. We're talking about anything with extra calories and sugar and sweet and stuff. So a lot of people do indulge in that too. I mean, you get a package of drinks, forget about it. I mean, you want to make
once you start, it's and it goes back into, I haven't had a drink in so long, or I have been working so hard. I don't have time to relax. I just want to lay there on my chair by the pool and have that person, deliver drink after drink after drink. And it is okay, it's okay. It's about being present with what your choices are. How do you want to feel? Is that how you relax? Does that make you feel better? Is it, what is it? What's it going to do for you? There's nobody standing by with judgment. It is how much can you enjoy without going over the edge? And, as parents or caregivers, we're so careful. We don't want our children to have belly aches. We don't want them to get sick. We don't want them to overeat. Actually, it's okay to let them experience the discomfort of overeating. And it's not about, I told you so. It is about how to turn that into a learning experience. I'm really sorry that you have a bellyache. Tell me what happened. Helping them understand and connect to their body. That if they had 3 cookies, they felt fine, but it was 5 cookies and the 2 donuts that put them over the edge. Letting them experience it, with boundaries. You certainly don't want somebody, going over the edge, but helping them have autonomy and to own up to their experiences so that they can start to regulate, what does hunger feel like? What does full feel like? What does overfull feel like? What does it feel like when I'm so stuffed I have to vomit? Help these kids experience these things. We're such a generation of protecting our children. And trust me, when I'm talking about this, I'm not excluding myself. I am including myself. It is eventually our children go off and have to eat on their own. They go off to college or off to their jobs or their new families. They have to, giving them the skills of autonomy to know their body is one of the best gifts that you can give them as a parent. It's changing your perspective on what, how you want to protect and support your children. Helping them be resilient is a gift. Even if they crash and burn, you're there to support them, and they're crashing and burning within a safety net as opposed to going out on their own and exploring. It's like I have very strong opinions on, my kids are now 29 and 25. It wasn't as if I was hosting the alcoholic party, but I knew they were going to drink, and I would rather them learn how to drink responsibly with the guidance of our family, or the rules are, if you're going to drink, you're going to stay and I'm taking all the keys. Letting them do that versus going off to college and all of a sudden having their first drink that leads to 6 drinks, and all of a sudden they're passed out because they have no idea on what it feels like or how to take care of themselves. So it's really a gift to let our kids feel those experiences and to be there to support them versus to be the rule maker all the time.
Well, Lisa, thank you for that. And as a matter of fact, as we were talking about the cookies, I thought about my daughter, and this happened to her actually. So literally, true story. That one time she was just hungry, and she started just shoving a lot of cookies, and she did actually get really sick after that. And after that point on, she knew her limits, so she did not actually go crazy. And now she's very careful about everything. Like if she just eats. That, and especially at night, she has her own measures. Like, I can't do this because I can't sleep, and and she hates vomiting and all that. So
Yeah,
so,
nobody wants to. I mean,
I know
nobody likes to do that.
she wouldn't even take pills or anything. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I trust me, I've had my share of those every now and then over my years, and and it's painful, and no one wants that experience. I mean, your body sometimes tends to reject certain food, and it's not good.
Yeah.
Again, we don't want to discuss people on the show right now, but if you're human, you've experienced it. I don't think anyone in this world hasn't experienced one of those moments. But again, to your point, the body does know when to stop you, and it will. And
If we listen, and that's part of it.
excellent.
Tuning into listening. And I say it's like listen, trust, and respect. And it takes practice. It takes time. It takes patience to hear what your body what your body is saying. I like to use an analogy of learning another language. So English is my primary language. I have attempted to learn Spanish. I've attempted to learn French. Neither has gone very well, enough to just, get by and order off of a menu. Learning to speak the language of your body. And it's like I work with my clients, and it is learning a whole new language. I have women who are just learning to identify what their hunger is. And the conversation is, well, maybe, I don't know. Experimenting. Well, if I eat or if I don't eat, how do I feel? And helping them tune into the signals, noticing, are you, your ability to concentrate, your patience level, if you have children, are you a teacher, are what's happening? And noticing how from hour to hour, your body changes and your ability to do things based on your hunger levels, so that you can start to clue into that body speak, as opposed to the rules and the regulations of what I'm allowed to eat or can't eat. So it's really learning to speak a second language. And the one that's really the most important one is that communication within yourself.
Listen, and that's the most important part, right? I mean, it starts with us individually, and we determine everything else. I mean, you are available as a resource to give guidance and help them find out that themselves, and but at the same time, it will take them to do the work. I mean, each individual person has to see what that means for them, and they will address it accordingly. And results may vary, as you said. There's no guarantee on what, depends on how your commitment is, and that's everything else, by the way. It's like everything in life, work, career path, business. If you don't, take it to the level you want, it's not going to work.
I look at it as, nobody is broken. I'm here to help them heal, and I'm here to help them support. I don't hold people accountable. And, yet I work with clients, 6-month program, and I'm very clear to say that, this is the path. This isn't sign up today and you're going to magically have this amazing, wonderful relationship. This is your path to healing. And these are skills and tools that you can take with you. And there's other things that we do as we go past that 6-month program, because we're undoing typically 30, 40 years of dieting. You can't just flip that switch and turn off all that information that's going on in your head. It's really trying to create new thoughts, and a new modality on how you are going through the world and your connection to food in your body. And it takes time, patience, and practice, and self-compassion.
Well, like everything else, that's good, right? It's if you want
Yeah,
to help, you're
there's,
going to be patient. It doesn't happen
yep.
overnight. And to your point, especially if you're going to readdress and adjust things and really make changes, it's sometimes hard. It's difficult, and it's commitment, time, energy, money, you name it, right? But I wanted to touch on another element that many people listening and watching may have a question about. Now, we're talking about the mindset really about eating and how to approach the eating habits and changing the style and being comfortable. That's great, and I love the concept. But now someone can ask, well, what about illnesses? How do we does intuitive eating help with, for example, diabetes and some other conditions? I don't know, maybe blood pressure, like sodium based food, because those are because you mentioned earlier about labels, right? And most people look at labels for things like sugar and stuff. You mentioned it, but there's you can eat a lot of stuff that don't have those preservatives, addictives, and additives, all those things, and still be doing good. So what do you say to that in your formula?
So that's a great question. And I still promote the practice of intuitive eating because when you have an illness, a lot of it is based on restriction and deprivation, and people can't adhere to it. It's no different than a traditional diet. So like my father is a type 2 diabetic and he's been a diabetic for years, and we call it that, he plays the number game. And my mother is constantly barking at him is the only way. And I hope my mother is, whether she's hearing this or not at some point, but she's constantly, in his space about what he can or can't eat or should or shouldn't eat. The stress of that has a huge impact. And, he sneak eats because there's so much stress on what he should or shouldn't eat. How do we, you have to look at the bigger picture because total deprivation doesn't work. So how do you weave in so that there's some balance and understand that when you do this, this happens and that it is a choice versus the total restriction and deprivation. I am not a nutritionist. I'm not here to tell somebody, this is what you need to do. But there are specialists out there who focus on intuitive eating and diabetes, and that they do work together, that there is a way, because the traditional route has people going, here's your plan. And then they show up at the doctor's office and nothing has changed other than they have to increase their insulin because they can't sustain the restrictions and the deprivations. So how do we learn to take a different approach, a more mindful approach to help these people be able to be more in tune to their body, be more present, understand the consequences on when this happens, how to manage it versus black and white on this is how you have to do it, because all of a sudden you restrict, can't take it anymore. And then you go into 2 weeks of a binge and your numbers are all over the place. How do you create balance?
So Lisa, I think I got your concept a little bit. Let me see if I got it right. So really what you're doing is you're helping people identify with food without restrictions, but understand the good and the bad, how they see it and they will be able to judge that. Am I getting that?
It's how do they feel inside? What is their relationship? And, it goes back to the permission. It goes back to that example that we were talking about on the cruise ship. Even people with illnesses, yes, they have an illness. They still, their food rules turn into restrictions and deprivations. And we know that it's not sustainable. Most often it is not sustainable. So how do we change that dialogue? And, there's extremes on both ends. If you eat this, if somebody has an allergy to peanuts, I'm not telling you to go and see how your body feels. We know that you may die. We're talking about the broader scope on how to shift your relationship to food and live within the circumstances of what health is to you and your body, and trying to get out of the rigidity of yes, no. Maybe you can have 5 M&Ms, but you can't have a dozen M&Ms. Where is the balance so that it's not all or nothing, and learning that I can have this, but I can't have all of this. And that changes the conversation from I have to be good all of the time.
No, I actually enjoyed the concept because to your point, it's really like I said, you can have it all, but you got to learn what quantities when, and so you basically become more of a disciplined eater.
It's more of a gentle eater, so
Oh,
that you're getting rid of that dialogue where, I broke my diet, which means I'm now bad. It's getting, when you don't have rules to break and you're trying to, when you don't have those rules to break, you're not on a diet or off a diet. This is your everyday life. This is your here and now body. How do we embrace what I have today? Like, I have one client who's in a larger body, and she's originally from Brazil, and there's this beautiful place that she has talked about where she grew up, and she loves to swim, but she hasn't swam in a long time because she's now in a larger body, and she has a 6-year-old child, and her wish is that in the next couple of years that she goes back to Brazil and she takes him swimming there, and they have this, it's just what she, a way of saying, like, I'm home and this is what I love to do and I want to share it with my family. And working with her for less than 6 weeks, she said, I signed up for swim lessons and I put on a bathing suit and I'm going to swim. And her body has not changed. I certainly don't ask, but the goal is not about weight change. She feels more confident in her body. She is in the pool, she is swimming, she feels good. She feels better than she has in the last 6 years. And it has nothing to do with the weight. She is now physically moving. She is physically doing something that brings her joy. She has something that she is working towards. And it's not about being in a smaller size bathing suit. It is about being able to swim and to be able to enjoy. So when you change your measurement, it gives you so much more space.
well, I love it because I had actually a guest who had a very similar story about herself, and she made a full change by when she did all the exercise and all the coaching and realized, that was not about, the weight change. It was just about her. And then it made a whole difference in her life, and she became a coach too, and we had actually a show. But really, you're right. It's to your point. People are caught up in, my body, my this, my that. But once you're comfortable, and to your point, it was not about, the size. It was about just ability to swim and things like that and be able to do that. And now she is, because she got out of that concept. You got her out of that shell that she was literally, or the template that she was being forced into, and that makes a difference. And that actually leads me. Go ahead. I think you
Go
want
ahead.
to.
No, go ahead. Ask your question.
No, I was just gonna talk about. I know we're talking about just food and the ability to your point, to have that non-restricted and feel about it, and people feel good about themselves in their own skin. But the idea is now with people that may want to do exercise and other things. Is there any does this conflict with it, or do you encourage it? Do you discourage it? Does it have to
I
affect on it?
encourage movement because I think movement is really important. I encourage people to discover what movement feels good to them. I encourage people to start with a minimum baseline. If you have not moved or done anything, go for, go for a walk. I'm not telling you how long. It's getting, because most of us think, well, if I don't have an hour, I really shouldn't go do this. If I'm not, it's all these restraints and rules of what a workout should look like. I have one client who hates the word exercise, doesn't even like movement. Her big thing is she wants to be agile. She's in a larger body and she wants to be able to move. Because we have talked, it's not only people in, let me backtrack. Often people will say, my knees hurt. That's not just a larger body complaint. There are plenty of people in smaller bodies that have knee pain. Physical therapy, movement, whatever it is, how do we help people in larger bodies get the same type of care to help with their knee pain? Movement, physical therapy, doing something, finding that exercise that makes them feel good. Is it swimming that takes, less pressure off of their joints? So I am a big proponent of movement, and it has to come from inside. It's not for me to tell you, you have to go do this, you have to go join a gym. It's not going to work. My clients will naturally at some point discover that movement makes them feel good, and the pressure is off when it's not about burning X calories or shrinking their body. They naturally start to make it, it just comes naturally.
you just, again, it's, you have this rule, and I enjoy it. The fact is, like, with you it's all gray, there's no black, there's no white. You're in the middle, and you discover, you allow people to discover themselves and find the right pace that can make a difference in their life, and it's working, and you have seen results. It's working, and I like it because, to your point, when I talked about fitness and stuff, you said movement, and it's all about movement. You're right. It's just how intense your movement can be and how long you're going to move. I mean, what, I don't care what exercise you do. It's all about movement, and use tools for it. And if you want to weight, whatever. But to your point, if you're just not moving, your body is not burning. It's not doing anything. But if you're moving, do something. The key here is you do it at your own pace, and you discover, and slowly but surely you can get to a point where you're comfortable, whatever that comfort zone is. And I think that's a pretty sweet, concept, because it's for the people that are not maybe touching on one side or the other, so everybody can actually get in the middle and just be in there, and everybody will be in their own pace. That's the other thing. Here you don't have to worry about who is. I'm not challenged by anybody. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm just me. I want to be me. I want to feel good in my way, and that's a big message for people, because at the end of the day, I think that's where we all stand. We want to be who we would like to be in our own way and feel, and without anybody's pressure on us. And you got to look this way, you got to do it this way. I mean, dress code can be also just, and I have a show about dress code coming up. But there's so many things people are so much conditioned to. Now, earlier we briefly talked about social media and stuff, and we talked maybe TV and media, but social media now has become a little bit more aggressive when it comes to all this. So much going on, and too many of individuals getting into this world and sharing their own opinions and so on and so forth. And I think that sometimes it can cause a lot of people literally see this day in, day out, and they can change. It's influence. We're talking influencers. It's a big influence. I think it's even more powerful than the traditional media. And that's just my opinion. I think it's more aggressive because we spend more time now on our, platforms and cell phones and apps, and we see in all this. I mean, TikTok can take hours of your life, Facebook, you name it. I mean, it depends on how you use it, but some people are literally just taking all their intake from there. And it's a little difficult. In your case, people are coming to someone who is guiding them and giving them the direction and tweaking things and taking the time. But when someone is taking this road without any guidance, that could be confusing, and it can drive people to do crazy things.
Right. So, social media is a huge thing. And think about how you've curated your content for what you see. It's all based on what you click on, who you follow, all of those things. So one of the things that I work with my clients on doing is shifting what they're seeing so that they start to see bodies that look like themselves, so that it starts to become normalized. Because if you're in a larger body and all you see is a thin body, you go to, self-esteem, which is on the floor, and you feel less than. When your bigger body starts to be normalized and you start to see that there's a lot of people in big bodies, normal sized bodies, whatever normal means, that you start to feel more accepted and less isolated. And you start to focus on, like, I'm a big proponent of self-compassion versus self-esteem. So that when we're talking about social media, you want to feel like you're part of something, that you are not just the outlier. So when you shift what you're looking at and what you're seeing and what you're reading, it changes your ability to start to believe that you can be healthy in any size.
I love it. I actually love the concept that you're real, and you hit on the key, because to your point, these algorithms know what you're seeking, and so if you look at something specific more than a few seconds, that's all it's going to give you. And so if you pick the right audience or the right messaging or the right profiles, then you will be in the right element. That's what you see more of, and the more you subscribe to those, the more you see more of that, and it changes all the dynamic. I think that's all how it works in the social primarily. And so you already discovered exactly what that is, and you've hit on that, because that's a big deal. And it is true. You pick any topic, especially TikTok is big on that. You pick one, more than 20 seconds, you watch it, and the next feed is all about the same.
And what's interesting is that I'll have weight loss coaches follow me. I will not follow them because I don't believe in what they're doing. It's it's their choice. It's not for me to judge. It doesn't work for me. So I don't follow those people. They can follow me. I'm happy to share my information. I don't want my feed seeing their before and after pictures. That does nothing for me. And I'm no different than anybody else. I also need to keep myself safe so that I don't fall back into that diet, the shackles of diet culture, because it's so pervasive and it's easy to fall back in. So really learning how to set those boundaries and to protect what you're seeing. Like if I'm standing in line at the supermarket and I'm seeing a bunch of before and afters at the magazine rack, I'll flip them over because it just annoys me. It's like, we just don't need to see that. It doesn't serve anybody any good.
Well, listen, I respect exactly that, but there's going to be always a different opinion about this, and there's the other side that says, well, you know what? No, you got to do this. You got So I tend to kind of listen to. See, I'm the kind of person that takes it all and just make my own formula.
And that's exactly it. I'm not pulling somebody over to the other side. I mean, I had one of the women in my group started out with, well, that's good for her. I don't see it in me. 6 weeks later, she's like, well, maybe. Like she's starting to see how it can be part of her life. And it's all about perspective, being open-minded, willing to change. I mean, through neuroplasticity, we can change we can change how we think. When we change how we think, we change how we feel, and how we feel changes how we, what actions we take, and that changes our final result. How do we change our thoughts? And it's about creating thoughts that are believable. I'm not telling you that you have to go from body hate to body love. Let's work on saying that, there's parts of my body, my belly is wonderful. I get to snuggle my children in my belly and they really like it soft. Doesn't mean that I have to love it. It means that right now that your baby or your child loves it. And the next step might be, it feels really good when that baby is on my belly and I love that they're in there. How do you build that ladder little piece by little piece or rung by rung so that your brain can start to accept one small step at a time? Because you can't just say, it's black and it's white and then all of a sudden you're going to meet in the middle and it's going to be fine. But the practice of intuitive eating, like the way that I work with my clients is that I want them to be in the gray. I want them to go for a C. I want to get rid of the perfectionism because the perfectionism keeps them stuck.
And that's beautiful because, to your point, I mean, there's audiences and crowds that want to be in that level, but to your point, there's a whole bunch that just may not be able to do that, and so they need to have the right guidance and stuff, and to feel comfortable. And you hit on the power of the mind here, and it's funny because the last show I had was literally master your thoughts, and I think master your life or something of that nature. I think that was the time, and so it was all about the power of the thinking and the thoughts and how you can change your life by doing that. And you're right, it's all about adjusting, adapting, and knowing who you are. You don't have to subscribe to everybody's opinion. And by the way, I'm at a point in my life personally, in everything I do, I don't really care anymore what people think, and I just know what I want, and I'm going to go for what I want on any given day, and that's it, whatever that means. But I take opinions. It's all good. Come on in, send them over. But doesn't mean I have to subscribe to them. I take the good, the bad, and extract whatever I don't like.
And that's exactly it. Is that it's not all or nothing. It's, all that I'm talking about is, here's an alternative way to think. Here is an alternative way to start to be more comfortable in your body. There's no right way or best way to do it other than helping people understand that when you take that weight loss off of the table, it makes these things that much more possible. And it takes time. I wish everybody would just throw their scale out. Don't donate it because you're just passing along the torture. Take it, crash it, get rid of it. It's just a horrible piece of information that just has no purpose.
Listen, I will take that advice. Now I want to get people to reach out to you. How do we do that? I mean, we certainly, I'm sure people are listening, watching, and there's got to be some folks that may be interested in your version of how it's handled and your program. And so where do we guide them?
So the best place to find me is at Lisa Dahl, DAHL wellness.com. So it's lisadahlwellness.com. I have a free 5-day mindful eating experience. So it's a great way to dip your toes into seeing what we're talking about, being present when you're eating, some skills each day for 5 days. You'll get a simple practice. Going into the practice, I would love to suggest that you don't weigh yourself, that you stop whatever diet you're on and dip your toes in for an experiment and see how you feel, see what the experiment is. What I love about it is that the videos are 2 to 3 minutes. It gives you a taste of getting to know me a little bit better. There's some short couple paragraphs on each email, so they're not long, drawn out. And I just invite people to put their toes in the water, check it out. I would love to talk with somebody one-on-one. If anybody wants to have a conversation, there's always links on my website on how to connect with me personally. And just share the information, let me hear your story, and see what we can do to help heal your relationship to food and body.
I love that relationship to food. I like that. Well, are you only on like virtual, or you do also personal?
Everything is virtual. I work with my clients one-on-one, as well as I have a 6-month program called Body, Peace, and Food Freedom, which is one-on-one coaching with a small group experience, because community is such a beautiful thing when you are going through a health and wellness journey. So I meet with my women once a week online as a group, and then every other week we meet individually for deep dive coaching. And the group is about education, interaction, what's happening, how checking in as a community. And, one of the things that I've really noticed about the women is that sometimes people really struggle and they'll say, I really wasn't going to show up today, and I'm here, because they're learning about self-compassion, in that if they self-isolate, they fall into that self-pity and loneliness. When they come and share where their struggles are, they understand that there's community, and it brings them together, and that everybody suffers and everybody deserves compassion to get through their challenges. So I absolutely love, love, love my community. It's just always an amazing group of women. And my next program, I offer it several times a year. So depending on when you hear the show, there's always another one coming up. And occasionally I do workshops, starting to get out and do public speaking, in front of people, which I'm super excited about. But everything in terms of client work is online. Just get to reach more people in more places, no matter where you are in the world.
Well, that was my next question. So you do actually you can work globally, so that's good. And then
It's awesome.
Anybody can benefit from it. And by the way, there might be a lot of folks in other places in other parts of the world that may not have access to programs that are similar. I mean,
Right.
Everywhere in the world, we know there's gyms and there's some fitness, level.
If you can speak English, I am happy to have you as part of my community. That's the only constraint. I cannot help you if I don't speak your language. I can help you speak body, and I speak English. So no matter where you are in the world, if you can, if you want to join in, please reach out. I would love the opportunity to be able to learn how I can support you.
And Lisa, the actual link to the website will be on the description of the show, so people will be able to link to it and all the platforms where it's going to be broadcasting. So
Perfect.
We'll have that ready for you, and hopefully people can reach out. And listen, folks, I mean, if this is for you and you feel that you need somebody to help you get to that level of discussion with your body and understand it, I think that is the perfect platform for you, and the place and person to assist. And just before we close, I know we've just exceeded, and there's a lot more we can talk about. I mean, we can talk about genetics. We can talk about, you mentioned something about diabetes. I mean, I live with my mom, and she lives with me, just to be clear, because people was like, oh, you still live with your mom? No. So she's an age where diabetes and stuff, but it's very difficult. You're right. And sometimes, she indulges whatever, because we can't restrict everything. It's just not going to work. And yes, you got to compensate with some insulin, whatever. But it is tough. It is tough, and you're right. And again, she did gain weight, and so it's a little bit more difficult for her to do exercise and stuff. So it's all about, to your point, motion. So I really relate to that physically, because I've seen it, I live with it, and I try to cope with it and help my mom, and to be comfortable as much as she can the way she is, and with her condition. So.
And to help her feel comfortable and not judged, because the stress of the judgment is so impactful, and that raises your cortisol level, and that goes into another cycle, and how to take that judgment out and to make people feel safe in the bodies that they are in, and that is part of helping them heal as well.
I told you we can talk another hour. We just started. But you know what? It's a very, very beautiful topic, and I think people can relate to it. And by the way, just the other thing I wanted just to add is that we someone may be watching and listening, or even men that have we all surrounded, as I said, with
This is
women
not
now.
just women.
Exactly. And by the way, to your point, you're right. You work specifically with women, but men experience the same way. We might have different genetics, maybe different DNA, whatever, but we still have similar, approaches. But the idea is, even if we have a loved one, someone in our family, in our midst, someone we know that may have a challenge with whatever it is in terms of weight loss or diet stuff, this could be an opportunity and a resource for them to help them, and maybe this will be the thing that's going to make a difference for them and their life and their self-esteem, as you said, and just turn them into in a better place. So listen, hey, it's nothing to lose. To your point, you have an ability to test that out and see what's going on. And if I may ask, just technicality, I mean, sometimes cost can be a little bit of a question. Is there what people can expect for the program?
Absolutely, and I appreciate the question. So if somebody's working with me one-on-one, I work with them bi-weekly, every other week, 12 sessions, and that's $1,800. And my Body, Peace, and Food Freedom program, we meet weekly as the group, and every other week for one-on-one coaching, and that is $2,999.
Okay, so now we have the price, and so
Yes, so thank you for asking.
well, again, some people may
No.
want to share it, but at the end of the day, people would cost sometimes does play in. And by the way, if you were to get a personal trainer for a few weeks, you'll probably be spending about the same. The cost is just about.
These are skills that you will take with you for the rest of your life. You can't unknow learning how to communicate with your body. There may be times where it's more challenging, and you still can't unlearn the skills that you're going to learn. So it's just taking the time, investing in believing that you deserve to be happy, healthy, and confident, no matter what size that you're at. And that, the other thing to also think about, if you are a parent or a caregiver, is our children model after us. And the best gift that you can give your children is healing your relationship to food in your body, so that you give your children a future of body, peace, and food freedom. So it really is an important topic.
It is. Well, Lisa, just because you mentioned something about children, is there an age limit to who can be in the program? Just because some may have.
I typically am working with women who are in their mid 30s and up. If a community came together of younger women, I would absolutely create another program to do that. But typically, just based on my age, I seem to be attracting women who are, late 30s and up. I'm 56. So it's always just trying to find the right person that you can relate to and have those safe conversations. And where you feel comfortable. If you are a young woman and you feel comfortable being with all different ages of women, come on in. I won't turn anyone away. I just am very honest with the makeup of what most of the women are. And it's typically like late 30s and up.
And by the way, I love your honesty about it, because that's important. And the thing is, the reason I'm asking is because your program is unique in a way. There's not a lot of it that I've come across to date, and I'm sure there's a very small group that folks that do what you're doing out there, and so therefore there might be a need even in the younger folks, because again,
it's needed.
This is not, and I think more than ever, I mean, our new generation, the whole concept of body and size and weight has changed over the years, and so there is more tendencies right now to have a different level of health, in the way that we've conditionally been used to over the years, right? So again, I just wanted to ask about that, if that's available as an opportunity, and certainly it is. So people, listen, I mean, it may not be the place you can look for other opportunities, but certainly Lisa is not going to turn anybody away. So hey, why not, right? Let's create a different community. You never know.
That's exactly it.
So listen, we've come to the end of the show, but I do want to have you just maybe a couple of pieces of advice in the last words that of wisdom that you want to share with the audiences here.
Really, it is think about, one of my favorite quotes is, Life is messy and magical, and it's filled with disappointment and discovery. Be kind to yourself. And no matter where you are in your health and wellness journey, it's going to take time, patience, practice, and self-compassion. You're not broken. It's all about healing. And I just would love the opportunity, if this resonates with anybody, to please reach out and let's have a conversation.
Lisa, thank you for those really true words of wisdom. I mean, I should put them on a meme and frame them somewhere. Maybe I have to take this clip and just highlight it. I mean, I love it. I mean, by the way, that could play for a lot of folks, not just in this context.
Well, the messy and magical comes from Christy Nelson of the Gratefulness. She wrote a beautiful, beautiful book called Wake Up Grateful. And it's just one of those quotes that has just really stuck with me and resonates. And I just feel like it's just very fitting of what my clients go through.
And I truly appreciate it here. I appreciate it and resonates with everybody I think that's listening or watching today. So thank you for that. With that being said, Lisa, thank you for being with us. It's been real. It's been great, an honor. And thank you for the work you do out there to help people. Folks, thank you for being with us, watching or listening in. And I'm your host, Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. Different guest, different show, different topic. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.